to society. And if they want to go to Alameda and Alphabet, it should be able to go to Alameda and Alphabet and not have to choose, because we only got $10,000 increase in transportation. Because I know the cost.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, Martin, and I think I want to mention in regards to transportation, there's some other funding that we also included. So there's community development block grant, there's a small allocation that elderly services usually gets out of the CDBG. We also have the Lorette Fund. It is a fund that is managed through elderly services as well. The elderly services director is a member of that fund. So again, that's another pot of money that we have access to through that fund. So you are correct. And probably is not a lot, but we do have other resources that we can go through as well. And as always, I mean, you're right, seniors are a very vital part of the community. So if Ms. Bill wants to pass day 4 came to me sometime next fiscal year and said we need to transfer some funding, we would be right back before this board to do that. Thank you all, Marcia. Get beautiful. Forget that. Alder, when you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to follow up on my colleague from the 22nd words, I mean, the price of gasoline or probably, all of those. With the capital projects redesignation language, what repairs that St. Bernadette do we anticipate happening? I mean, it sounds like that's what was essentially before us, right? Previously, we go through the other 2 facilities now. Would also go through.
Yeah, no, that's a great question, all the winter, and that's something that the previous elderly services director was working on, so we very kind of got control it, and possibly get the answer to the chair to go through that. I know this was language that she was passing, so I've been working with the St. Bernadette, so I can get a full answer.
What's the length of our lease with St. Bernadette?
I believe we're on year to year lease.
Yeah, and through the chair, it'd be helpful to know what the capital designation might ultimately go towards. That would be great information to receive. With the changes you mentioned with the part-time staff and increased transportation, you mentioned an aspiration of going to 5 days. Would those changes allow for that, or would they just be a step in that direction?
The staffing levels are the same as pre-COVID. So again, there's no additions or anything to the staffing level. I think right now we're just operating at 3 days a week. And I think it would just be a plan how the staff is short. But as far as the budgetary piece goes, this is the same staffing level that was pre-COVID when we were operating 5 days a week.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And the same for the part.
Thank you, Alder. Alder Colonel, with your strong and magnificent voice.
It's preaching night tonight. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for being here this evening. I'm not sure if you covered it. If you did, just tell me you did, and I'll get the information through back channels. But I just wanted to know, just have a general idea, because I didn't hear it, what the recreation supplies are and the equipment, if you didn't cover that already.
So recreation supplies are, we have various programs that are done through the senior center, so Tai Chi,
Yes,
and
yes.
other areas that they have, so that's their supply.
Got it.
We do purchase that. Equipment is, we do have like some sewing machines and other and other type of equipment like that that are utilized at the senior center, so sometimes they break down, repair, or we need to replace. So this is really equipment geared towards, some of the programs that we use at the senior center.
Great, thank you. And my final question, Mr. Chair. There is food disparity among many in our population of seniors. And does this come out of your budget when we have various food organizations go? I know there's been a couple that have asked for food. What is that organization called? I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank. The market that comes in and where they can buy food. CDC, yes. Is that a partnership with your department? Only go certain places, and I know that they've been asking, at least in my part of town, for help with food.
Yes, typically in terms of the question about the budget, we have not included in our food assistance dollars and the service department budget. There's partnerships that happen with the area agencies on aging, the organization called Lifebridge that brings in meals to the senior centers and during the pandemic. We have our organization associated with delivering meals and delivering groceries to seniors. Those are not part of the budget. Some of them come out of emergency COVID funding. So to my knowledge, I don't think there's a formal partnership between CDC and the Health Services Department. Probably is on day 4, and but that isn't. If there's an opportunity to have a partnership there, we can obviously bring in our food system policy director and see if there's an option for some sort of partnership.
That would fall under food services policy. Yeah. Something to think about. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you all for further questions from colleagues. Seeing one more, thank you. And before we move on to the next department, I just want to thank the few moments to remind everybody about Lucy Matthews, Lucy, former director of the Melbourne Services for the City. Thank you very much. Now we're moving on to youth services, youth and recreation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, looking at slide number 2. The general fund portion of the service youth and recreation budget went up by $255,494. That was primarily in the personnel section. So, moving on to slide 3, breakdown of the general fund budget. They are really and other contractual services. So other contractual services are partnerships that Ms. Williams mentioned that these services have. With the other contractual services. But again, that budget really remains the same. The increase is primarily within personnel. Moving on to slide number 4, which I will turn it over to Ms. Williams and Dr. DeLong. You will see there are 2 positions added, as well as an increase in part-time, as well as a salary. So I'll get you off and go ahead.
One of the things that were included in the budget was a salary increase for the director. Successful merger of the youth and recreation side. It was never a commensurate increase to reflect that new responsibility last year. And I think we have one very successful year under our belt. We did a quick review of comparable in some of the big cities, Hartford, Bridgeport, and we found cases on the lower side for the services directors. So we're proposing to increase salary in line with some of the high quality services.
And I appreciate your comments. So to the committee this evening in regards to the new positions, as Dr. BoA has been referenced to, this was our inaugural year. We had ex employees and we know what worked and what did not work. And one thing that we have found as I was reflecting that is to restructure the way our department is set up at this time. It is not the best model that we have. So I looked around to see what department has a model that I can look to. And I referred to LCI and the way they have this divisions, specifically having a deputy order and creating a division to report. And so we do have one current deputy position, which is recognition. And our proposal is for two more to be the director of operations and director of youth. And so looking at the director of operations, this person will be handling all special projects of the department that has come upon us. As we have originally had a year requests of the department, and I hope that you can reflect that over the year, that anything that has been asked for us, we have been able to provide. We continue to work through COVID in the office, to make sure that the program is in place for the youth. And we're also going to be the director of operations will be the signature of this that you all have come to know, such as our Easter egg card, our turkey giveaway example, our Halloween trumpet tree, our friends of Rio are examples of some of our signature events. One job that kind of floated within our place was the management of our fields and facilities in the creative process. And the division of parks and recreation occurred. It was just a city and people over to our side, but it has never been assigned to a person, so that we go under operations, as well as the management of the Q house. Now, although the Q house is under the line item community services administration, it does fall under auspices of the recognitions for the department. So we have been engaging the construction process that is on the Q house that will fall under the area of operations. The director of recognition that is existing right now, we continue to manage all the recognition program of the city, including of camps and young programs. But the department of recognition focuses on school, focuses on the ages of 5 to approximately 13. And we all recognize that you cannot have the same program for 5 years as you have for 60 years. And we have to take that into account. And so the director of recognition job will not change the program that he is currently in charge of for that 18 to 18 So now we need to address the needs of those who are 14 to approximately the age of 24. Even though we say the age is 21 based on the fundings that we have, many of them address up to the age of 24 so that we want to stay in line with different federal and state points that have come to us at that age. And so the director of youth will manage overseeing our youth and program for that age group of 14 to 24, as well as the youth centers that we have. We have many facilities on the parks that with under parks and recreation. With the split, the management of the facilities falls underneath youth and recreation. And so it has been a push to the administration to design new centers across the city of New England, and how we need staffing to be able to implement that program. And so under the position of the director of youth, the program that will into those buildings would come under the purview. Yes, the physical things will fall under the director of operations. So we understand that in the physical things, we have to make sure that if there's a need for the kids, if there's a need for supplies, that someone is on top of using these buildings to make sure that the buildings are in a safe state so that we can have permanent people come in. Again, following the model LCI and trying to give the instruction of this department to meet the needs of our youth as we nation. This is the first step to setting up the restructure of the department. So I will believe questions that you have at this time.
Mr. Gorman. We're now going to proceed to questions from committee members for the Department of Youth and Recreation. Questions and comments on this department. Alderman Myers.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On clarification, you said the director of operations wants to make sure the facilities are up to par, or did you say the director? I was trying to like that.
I'm sorry, the director of operations will be over the facility, the physical plan. So the director of youth will be in charge of all programming for those people. And I'm sorry, I did just want to acknowledge my staff that is here with us tonight. They work very hard and support. And I just wanted you to see the faces of the people that have put these programs on and COVID and it's being a shout out because I appreciate it.
I appreciate everything you have done to participate in. It's not almost everything that the youth department is doing with COVID. So we appreciate that too. Thank you for the clarification. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, I did do my own part. There was an increase in regards to seasonal. And as you know, our rate of pay to our seasonal is correlates with the state of Connecticut minimum wage. So as that increases, we also have to increase the pay to our seasonal employees. So that's why there's an increase in that line item.
Thank you for that additional information. Further questions from colleagues? Over here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your presentation. Do you have job descriptions for these two positions that you can share with you?
I do not have this moment, but what I will do is join up with the TV. Chair, I know there is a process that we have to review the approval for the job description because they will be union positions. They have to be accepted by the voice of anyone from the community. But I'm really happy to share because I appreciate your insight. If you have anything you wish to add, I'm always able to start the criticism or input that this is being developed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Alder Winter. Further questions from committee members or on public service? I have a couple. First of all, I think that all my colleagues and you and your colleagues for the work you've done, including during the pandemic. It's really vital. You know, we hear very powerful testimony from neighbors, including just recent, but the need, very important need to provide constructive opportunities for people. So important. About the increased part-time seasonal pay, you said it's related somehow to the state minimum wage. Is it state minimum wage or is it defined as a certain amount above the state?
It will depend on the position. So, for example, under the youth at work program, it is minimum wage, which is defined by the state. For positions such as lifeguard, we try to be compatible with our neighboring agencies. It's hard for the fiscal Because as everyone else will have difficulty believing now, even at the state right now, that we are in, we are pushing and we have been marketing, and there is a low time for our application process. We have a difficulty having to young people coming in for employment. And so we try to make sure that we are prepared to our council. So our wages have not gone below $19. They can find a position that you have over the system, which is on our recreational side. Only so those who are in the city, we are in the younger population. Either work is in prison, and it's a specialty that you have to have a certain position. We do try to compensate you for that. So,
Thank you. Appreciate it. This is a question that may also be for Mr. Long, but, earlier tonight we talked about job descriptions, classifications, and potential impacts. Impact salary that might change from that proposal. Here we have a situation with the position descriptions that we use, the position titles we here, but the description is not final. So is it possible that in the process of discussing the problem solving around the position descriptions with the union, we might end up with a different title or different salary range?
So let me, I heard Director Bond's answer earlier, and let me be clear. When we're looking at hiring and negotiating, we certainly try to stay within the budgeted salary. There may be a few exceptions where it's above the budgeted salary, where it's not a promotional type situation. But we always try to stay within the budget as we're going through the hiring process. I believe what Ms. Williams is going to send you is basically a high level job description. Again, you are correct, Chair Marchand. Ms. Williams may have some bullet points, but coming back to the union, again, we always welcome feedback when we're doing this. And the union sometimes gives good feedback on what they may see or, rewording or whatever it is. So I think what Ms. Williams is going to do is simply kind of a high level, but as we're going through this process, the description that you receive in the actual job description, if this is approved as posted, may differ. Because again, it's brand new, it's going through the process. And we'll see where it ends up. As far as the title goes, the titles that we have on here, normally when we do a title or a job description, unless the description is way out, that's normally on the actual job title, really the body of the description of that work that we're really negotiating. So I don't foresee these job titles really changing. In the package, I had Deputy Director of Youth Administration, Ms. Williams did tell me before, and I honestly just forgot. Take off administration, Deputy Director of Youth. So, that may change, but as far as the title, I don't foresee that changing. It's really the work that goes with that.
Of course, our committee is well aware that adjustments can be made. It can be through the regular process, which is some positions are further along their development, and that discussion so you feel greater level of confidence of the budgetary committee, whereas others will be less confident. So it's just useful to see what the context is. My last question is about no, that's for another time. Alder.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you. For what we should have gone. Is there a limit or cap to the work and how many you can hire?
So the number that we have correlates to the funding that we have that comes in. And so we do continue to receive a number of special fund dollars from different agencies. Our major fund that is in the Department of Labor, we receive, I would say, 85% of our dollars out. And then, prior to her leaving, the coordinator of Youth at Work at this time, was really great at obtaining leveraging additional funds so that we can hire. We have been fortunate that this past summer, we were able to use dollars from the American Rescue Plan, and that was the first time we were able to hire all our employees, every person that applied. And at the rate of applications we're receiving now, it's probably going to happen again. But so the number coordinates to the hours that we receive.
Great. Thank you so much. Any further questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Following up on my colleague in the third ward. Can you tell us more about the drop in special fund budget by about $800,000?
Yeah, so again, when you look at special funds, it's a budget for our grants, right? So sometimes as we're going through the budget process, we don't have all the grant numbers. So again, sometimes that's kind of why we don't get a lot into the special funds, because those numbers are going to fluctuate as the process goes. So to give you an example, we're not done with the CDBG process, right? So a lot of the grants that you see in budget packages are down because we didn't include those figures yet, they're not approved. So again, grants are approved, we do have some city revolving grants, and other grants, those are approved as they come, which is why we see these numbers fluctuate, on the package.
So it's the timing, essentially.
Absolutely, I mean, March 1st is the budget deadline, we don't have all the grants in by March 1st, we don't know the exact dollars or approvals or anything.
Thanks. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you all for being here. And just by way of reminder, the special funds, grants primarily are approved on a case-by-case basis, often by this committee, sometimes by other committees, certain CDBG processes do to talk to users, and so they're included in our big budget for information purposes. But I can go out when it's what I'm most periodically throughout the year. But folks already know that. Any further questions from colleagues? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then we'll move on to the final workshop for the evening. Board.
Hello. Hello. Thanks.
So as folks can tell, just remind you. This is what I call it, one there. Don't push the button. Hold it close to your mask so that everyone, so the massive audience will be there. So we'll start with you, please, ma'am, and then we'll go this way with the names and addresses.
Good evening, Easter at Ann's 155 Harmon Lane, Hampton. Good evening, I'm Basic Superintendent, 256 Johnson Street. Good evening.
It's okay.
Good evening, 39 Roosevelt Street.
Jackson, non-creating entity housing and Connecticut, executive director of student services.
So as you know, in the mayor's proposed budget, we did submit an increase of $5 million in general fund funding for the Board of Education. That funding will go towards some of the contractual services and other operating costs. That Dr. Tracy and her team will get into. But again, the increase in the mayor's proposed budget is $5 million over this year. So, turn it over to Dr. Tracy and her team.
Thank you, Mr. Gordon. Good evening, everyone. So this year, we have our 2022 proposed general fund budget that is built upon our strategic school plan with 5 priority areas representing 5.1, which is our budget piece. As you can see on page 2 of the document, it is just a synopsis of our strategic school plan that goes up to 2024. According to communication, we see our core values, and at the bottom of the range of priorities that we have. On page 3, you'll see our focus on academic learning. It's a lot more involved than this, but these are just synopsis of the areas that we're having. And on page 4, we deal with the quick build out of the culture and climate, which right now is getting a lot of attention.
Dr. Tracy, I'm sorry to interrupt you. When I printed out the packet, it came out double-sided, so Dr. Tracy, some of the pages, it may be one page on your packet. Sorry about that.
So I'll say the fact.
But the slides do have numbers.
Yeah.
If you refer to a slide number.
Yes. So the culture and climate, we're spending a lot of time on social emotional growth, social skills curriculum that we have. We have implemented historical practices for our students. And so a lot is going on in that as we came out of COVID for the past 2 years, and still in COVID. But just today I heard that we have 36 spaces just this week alone. So we're seeing an uptick again going on. We have the section that's deal with, which is 5, should be educators with the final retention of the professional learning time for all. We are trying to recruit teachers, but as you hear, the teachers union, they're talking about the low pay rate for their staff, and they're being poached big time by other districts that are giving more pay to the teachers, and so they're leaving to go to other districts. Yes, every day you see things coming in, the poaching game going on right now. Youth and talent community engagement, where we're trying to reach out to young people and extend learning opportunities for them throughout the school programs. Then operational efficiency, that's where our budget is. Equitable resourcing, so that we can get the budget process that is equitable. And in our strategic plan, that's 5.1, we call that. Enrollment, improve enrollment process, the systems of refinement, promoting transparency and equitable access to schools. We just finished our mapping bargaining process, get to see how many students we have. We informed the suburban areas. Last year we had about 5,000 or so total for several years coming up. We look at technology and facilities planning. Right now we're going through a facility study to see where we need to focus a lot more attention in relation to our not so new facilities that we have. And I'll turn this over, before I turn over to Ms. Pam. I just had a big hand as a big hand. So let's begin. So as Ms. Roman said, in terms of 5 million they're asking for, let me back up. Last year we asked for 8.5 million, we got 1.5 million. And so we struggled with this struggle. We had not closed that for last year. Because remember the year high, the teachers union gave us $4.5 million to freeze And so we were able to close the budget gap last year because what they've done, and I'm here to say maybe that's why they lost the seat, because it's very contentious. But we were able to close our deficit last year, and I think 2 years ago, we were able to close the deficit. This year we're struggling to close it because we had to do, the reason why we're able to close it, or we're even down to where we are right now, due to the fact that a lot of teachers, there are a lot of teacher vacancies, which is very hard to fill. And we also have some other areas where we try to look at, to see how can we move some things around to make sure that we're not in the big deficit. It's possible there may be one, depending on what happens. The 5 million we're asking for, we're seeing an increase in transportation costs. We're seeing an increase in fuel-related costs, which we consider to be our fixed costs, facility maintenance. We're looking at how can we also change out some of our HVAC systems. We're looking at part of our non-funded grants that we receive, do some of that work. We're looking at cost of construction materials that have gone up because of inflation. And so some of those are the things that are driving. Also, this year, also the teachers' salary, all of them salaries going up. Every year, teachers, administrators, and the admin salaries are going up. If we don't receive this 5 million that's been asked for, we're breaking those. And I don't want to come back to the Congress and say, listen, we need to close our budget deficit. And nothing that can get superintendents in trouble than not closing their deficits. But you know, at this stage where it's not good, what happens to students where in the pandemic. And our students have suffered a lot in terms of learning loss. And I know last time it was that you not come to us with a deep cut in the budget. It's not the time to talk about us in our budget. It's time to talk about how can we get even more stand forward to help our students who are struggling so much, not only academically, but also socially, emotionally. And I'm sure you get into our schools, you see that what I'm talking about. That's the calls of the teachers about what needs to happen. So I'll stop and get off and move on to Ms. Hannah, who will start presenting to you. Go ahead.
What I want to do is Tracy covered a lot of the strategic plan and sorry to interrupt you, but you'll have to go close to your mask so that there's a little bit. Point it in, there you go. So that basically is we want to plan and what's going on in the I'm going to now go into the objectives of the project and what I seen in my first year being the CFO. What are the objectives of this project? And there are quite some slides here, but I'm just going to touch on the important ones. And what we try to do is, you know, I heard a lot about transparency and stuff. So I said, well, let's try to build this story. So that's what I've done. So what we try to do, is present a budget that reflects the true cost of running a public school. And then also you try to look at the resources to the teachers in the class and the environment. And then we also invited going around and stuff to get feelers from the public in terms of our budget development and what we wanted to see. It was Saturday meeting and it went well and we were able to discuss ideas really on the slide next is just showing you basically the population currently about 19,290 students. And this chart here just basically shows you the our diverse population. Secondly, is the next slide on slide number 10, basically just shows you how our schools funding. This is an important slide because if you look at it,
$190 coming from the city and ECS, but look at the other side. The other side is showing that we have almost $159 million plus the 40 coming from outside sources. And that really challenge. The next slide here is basically showing ECS funding and city contribution. And if you look at across the blue bar, you see that it's been consistent for many years going back as far as 2015. You might see a few increases, but basically it's been consistent. This slide here represents the enrollments. So you can see that enrollment has gone down, between 2,600 students total, but now the number has changed, but it's gone up. But this slide here, when we do talk about enrollment, it has to be as of October 1st of 2021. So the next thing you see, if you see an increase, you won't see it until we do the next. So here again, I'm going to go back and basically the same chart again and show that the 2023 comes from the lines. And if you notice, the chart also is showing that any further increases that we do get in education cost sharing have to be charged to the alliance. But it has to be, you get that a lot with the words of that means that when the government gives us money, they tell you up front when they sign a statement of insurance, you say, we're giving you money to do boom, new things to supplement, not supplant what the city's supposed to do anyway. So you can see now with the change of grants, it's up to $200 million, but that's over years. One grant is over 3 years, another grant ends in 2023, one ends in 24, and then sometimes they will give you a carry over year, but it's just to close out. Now, when you see the increase, you can say to yourself, well, wow, there's a lot of money coming in, like to use that to help general funds. And of course, the supplement, not supplant, will go in and say, you can't fill your hole because school opens every September or every August anyway. You know that in your district, so we're not giving you money to open schools, we're giving you money to provide additional service. And so what I did with this slide here, it goes on to grants again. What I basically did was to show you how our grants are currently funded, what they're being used for. And if you look on the right-hand side, you have the full-time salaries. Now these were all the additional costs, or so to speak, supplemental. Keep in mind though that grants are in training, which means that some grants will have a 3-year span. A lot of federal grants have between 3 and 5 year spans. So even though you see the 24 year, that would be over a period of years. So if you spend it all in year one, then you've actually changed the scope of the grant, because the grant says, okay, in 3 years you're going to do this. If you do it in 1 year, then you have to worry about where the other 2 years are going to come from, and they will come and look at you and say, this is not what you put in your plan. On the second page, this basically tells you what types of grants you currently have, and kind of small to read. I try to make it as big as possible, but what happens is that you'll see like we have impact aid, which basically is nothing now. And that was because when we did the scattered site housing, we lost a lot of the funds that we would get for the projects that we had. The other grants on VA have grants for adult in. So you can even see, looking at this slide, that there's the bulk of this money that's coming in is for certain things. So now we get into the initial projection for the 2023 general fund budget. So we're asking, oh, I'm sorry, slide 7.
So what we're asking for this year is, I call it a modest increase of 4.67%. And this reflects a status quo budget. There are no changes in the budget. There was nothing we could put in the budget. I used to always work on the grant side, so I never really was involved to this level on the general fund side. So I always used to see when CFOs came before me, they'd always say that we need to handle this, that we ran out of money. Where's the rest of the money? And she was like attorney, you don't have enough. So now that I'm involved in the total organization, I am seeing it too. I'm like, how do you operate? So what I'm finding is that we are so far behind the 8 ball in terms of getting the funds that are needed for the Department of Education. We can't do anything else. If there are no new programs added because there are no funds, which causes another problem, because like when we look at mitigating grants, I can't mitigate something that was never in the budget in the first place. So like say if you decided to have after school programs, well, there are no after school programs in the general fund budget because there's, by the time we allocate the funds, there's nothing left. So which means the state covers the entire amount of the after school program. So there's not much we could do to say, okay, fine, we can take these programs and use these grant funds. So what happens is that what I'm seeing, and eventually when these grants go away, the teachers will all see and feel it, is that there's no money that you can do anything extra with in the Department of Education. This proposed budget here is the budget based on the way the expenditures were. We approved it 190. I think we asked for 198. If I'm not mistaken. But anyway, we need to handle this proposed budget in terms of the general fund allocation. So as you can see here, is that we have an approved budget of 190 at the end of the day. Our full year expenditure forecast is 194, but our initial budget projection is 200. So we're already going into the program. Next year, we're going into the budget with a $9.3 million deficit. So while we're saying that we put aside 5 that we hope we don't cut, we really not. The notable cost drivers for the budget or costs are just regular fixed costs, which is 74% of the general fund costs and personnel out of district tuition and transportation. And the staff itself are all basically full-time staff, and they're all part of the collective bargaining agreement. For the 4 largest bargaining agreements, I put what the I got an HR what the raises are going to look like next year. Now remember, we didn't get enough this year to cover the raises, so now the raises that we have now on top of that, we still have, I think, 2 or 3 unions that still haven't set. Then we also have our price escalation spelled out in a long-term agreement and contracts, which is your transportation, your building maintenance, and other costs. And then also we have increasing costs in special education for out-of-district placement is in services. And I think Ms. Jackson has pointed out to us anyway in our other meetings was that I think ACEs and folks like that have really gone up on their services. And I think they can because they know we know it's like you have nowhere else to go. This graph here just basically shows investment in the same information, but just in graph pie charts, excuse me, that shows where the expenditures are, and you can see the bulk of it is the personnel line. There are some great ideas that the board has that they would like to do and they would like to see. And some of those are here, the manufacturing program, purchase of the reading program, we're getting content, there are textbooks, we're increasing our play-based learning in early grades, we have a new health curriculum, and then we have a full implementation now of the Black and Latino studies. And that comes to $7.2 million But as you can see, all of this stuff will become for grants. There's no money in the budget to put for these ideas. The other slide I really won't get into, this is just something that, was previously submitted. And they just talk about how we really would like the budget. Then it shows another slide on page 23 that shows the funding streams and how they can, how they're working out. You can have schools like Hill Center that can visit Title I school, and then we have a school like High School Community. They're a federal magnet school. They're also a district school. They're a Title I school, and then there are also a Title I school. So this chart here is basically shows the different funds. This slide here is just basically on 24 just shows if you wanted to add resources. This is what we would try to do. Unfortunately, we don't have the money left, so that's not going to happen. With our long-range financial risk, our reductions would be in federal and state grants. Our long-range enrollment and building utilization, as you know, we have a lot of new buildings, which are now old buildings. And so those are things that would hurt us eventually down the line, along with aging infrastructure. And as I said earlier, new schools aren't so new anymore. Any new unfunded or defunded mandates, continuing growth in the number of special ed students or students with special needs. And then my major thing is the continued reliance on grants to fund programs.
And also, that if you notice that more recently with the influx of immigrants to our area, refugees, I should say, they are absorbing all that and it's not even budgeted. So where does that money come from? Because it's a cost to the district. I just received information from, is it Iris, about Ukrainian refugees coming to the land. They just accepted those that came from Afghanistan and other places. So all of that is coming to a district that is not budgeted. But I would say we are the mercy of grants to a certain extent. If those grants go with that $58 million with patent grants for the salaries and programs and whatnot. So if you were to look at the budget for $258 million to run the district, through grants, we're able to absorb some of those funds and provide services for our students and our staff. But I often say to my staff, so don't say that, I say this, I have to say. Just imagine taking away some of those grants and they go, they're not only there for it, we will be a bankrupt system. And that's a fact. We will be a bankrupt system. Because it's, and I understand also about the others not too long ago, and we understand the whole idea of cost that we need to our homeowners, in terms of raising taxes and not having to support education. But on both sides, the city and the state, we have to do a better job in supporting our local school district. And it's not that we have money flowing in, we do get a grant, but they're restricted. And that's one of the things I don't like about that, so restrict you as to how you need to use your funding. So we asked for $5 million that the mayors did not could, if passed, could help us with. We still have to figure out what we do with the $4.9 million. That's really challenge. You can see my hair already turned there, and I didn't come with it like this because it keeps me up at night, keeps me thinking. We're always talking about night, talking about this. And people say, but please, you guys get fun. You're rich in your head. Yes, we do get a lot, but it's not general. That's the concept. It's not general. And so as we struggle through to mitigate, I just came from a meeting yesterday with the state that we're looking at ECS funding for the districts. And it's a struggle because of the 169 towns, it's a struggle when our legislators go around and talk about funding for urban school districts. You're up against small towns that they're not thinking about urban school districts. What's meant for them? But now they're trying to get the government to sign off on some things about increasing ECS for the district. And we said, good luck for that. We spoke to Mark Rooney and others and our own Walker. So they're trying to see what they can get lined in right now before the election. And use it as, as a wedge there with our government. So this is what we're presenting. It's a bare bone, turn on the lights type of budget right now that we have presented.
You know, what to say about Tracy finished my presentation, but I just wanted to. But I just wanted to again point out that while it looks like, you know, we have a lot of money, the money that we're using, the money that we receive, everything is competitive or categorical or entitlements, and it makes it perfectly clear that we cannot use this money to supplement what we're supposed to get from local and state dollars. They will be, they used to go to Washington a lot, so it's kind of a lot of what's happening with grants, and they will be visiting the town, and of course, they're staying in health, and I probably should say that, but, so they will be visiting the towns to see how we use this money. They've also, had Dr. Tracy make sure that when she applies for this grant, that she signs a statement of insurances. So they will be looking, like say if you had, you budgeted, say, I'm just gonna say $10,000 for, say, your house. But then you're looking at, did you take away, your house is $10,000 because we gave Hill House some money on, you know, from the grant side. So what they're saying, we want to see on top of, not in place of.
Okay. Thank you for your presentation. We're now going to move to questions from the committee. So I'm opening up the queue. I see all more. Please, we'll have all more.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have 3 different questions, but they're all their own item, I guess. But they're all financially related. So my first one is, how are the additional funds that come from this suburban student enrollment used or allowed for use? You know how like open choice, that basically that's what I'm talking about, open choice. And when, you know, we take students from other communities, there are additional funds that are attached to that student. How are those funds allowed to be used? Are those also restricted, or can those additional funds go into the general pocket?
We usually take those funds and we try to. We usually take those funds and we try to put those back into the general fund, but we try to make sure that those expenditures are covered because those kids are an additional cost to us, but they're in the, you know, in the classroom and the general population and stuff. So what we have been doing is like when they had when they started having pre-K, a lot of those programs had pre-K costs, so we picked up a lot of the pre-K costs for the kids that were there between 7:30 and 5:30. So we used it for that. Because of COVID, we really didn't run into those kind of programs. So what I suggested this year is that we just put that money back into the schools to cover the expense.
The other thing I was going to say is that the same way that we get money coming in for open choice, we also spend money for some of our students that are going out. So again, it seems as if there's money that's coming in, but there's also that's money that's going out and we have to spend to the students that are in the district.
Which feeds into my second question. How many therapeutic school placements or on the district placements do we more new behavior children have? So, you know, we have foundation schools, we have all these therapeutic settings which cost a lot of money.
So close to 300, but I would say the number has been the same. The problem has been that the tuition costs have gone up an extraordinary amount across the board. One of our high volume vendors has gone up significantly, and when we did the math, and this was a couple of years ago, it was the same number of kids, but the amount of money that we were paying to the vendor was like, came to the tune of $2.8 million more for the same kids over a period of time.
So some of that is speaking to this $5 million that you're asking, because, like you said, there's nowhere else to go, right? And so we need that. Okay. And then the other piece, other question, which it kind of was related, what percentage of the, well, it's more so what percentage of the transportation goes to the therapeutic school out of placement district costs? Because I know that has to be very high if you're transporting a kid from Maine to Cheshire and back. Yes, because I never understood if transportation costs was also allotted into the number of for that child. So if you get $10,000 per kid for a regular kid, but you get $13,000 for on a district kid, do they give you transportation?
No, so what ends up happening, I'll just give you for instance, you can have a child where you're spending tuition at a cost of $120,000 a year, and that does not include the transportation cost. The transportation cost would be anywhere between $30,000 to $50,000 more on top of $120,000 you pay. And this is something that's required for a particular child. We don't have the breakdown for the specialized transportation, but I give you that because it's not embedded in the actual tuition. It's an additional cost on top of the tuition, transportation cost.
Which is, goes, and thank you for that. It goes into my next question. It's not really about the transportation, but it's again, how much has the need for, and this again on Iowa, how much has the need for mental health supports increased as far as the our children go, and how has that increased need reflected in their need for additional social workers and other support staff?
So there's been a significant increase. With our outgoing superintendent, we've increased the number, but we did the math. It was a little more than 21 additional staff persons, full-time staff persons that are not on grant that we have hired enough to be able to address the mental health needs. Additionally, we've been looking at some of our contracts, whether it's Clifford Gears, whether it's Yale, where we're also supporting our students as well. So to your point, yes, there's been a significant increase in the mental health needs that we've had in the district.
I would just add that we have added social workers and school counselors to our ESSER grant as well. But as you know, that's a federal grant that expires ESSER 2 in 23, which means these additional folks that we included on our ESSER funds their positions will end in June 2023. But the services will still be needed. And so as we look at across our general fund, we look at the acts that we have tonight, we're really trying to get our staffing somewhat to the level where we need it to be on general funds, but our grants are supporting these services that are needed, which should be a given for our kids, not something additional.
So basically, just trying to understand the 5 million, I think that's just the tip of the iceberg. But if you look at the fact that we have a lot of mental health is increasing, we have a lot of children who now have been identified on special ed, therapeutic school placements, and then on top of all of that, the transportation has gone up. And none of that stuff is going away when it goes back to the mental health. And so the 5 million that you're asking for, is that 5 million just monies to be able to put in the general funds to kind of fill some of the holes that reflect some of these things that we're talking about?
You're correct. Yes, fill some of the gaps that we have. And this is tearing down the
buy $4.9 million, so what are we gonna do? We feel that also back that. So these are real, and, we can't just keep running them grants, it's just a temporary fix. And then we don't want to get at the end of all this, and then we have a creek. We have that famous, and then, we get it all clear. We would say, let's talk to the feds, and let's get everybody onto, but then I would be responsible budgeting and spending, because we know that when I come to this end, or this sunset, that all of these will have to, either we cut the staff a little amount, and the teachers in there, or put it all over on general fund, to further exaggerate the general funds.
So last question, Chair, in regards to, because transportation seems to be one of the biggest issues outside of homelessness, because that's where you guys see that too. Are there funds, are there resources available through the state that would just speak to that? I know you have your ESSER funds, you have these different funds, but there has to be some type of funding that can support, you know, these funds are very specific. There has to be funds out there, something out there that you can get that will connect with funding. And then also looking at, because mental health is medical, right? That's a medical need. Just looking at those kind of reimbursements as your needs for more social workers and those support staff. How can we leverage? How can we look at these insurances? Because I guess everyone should have insurance now, right, with Obamacare. How can we leverage that, utilize some of those funds? Or can, is it something that you just can't do?
So those are not funds that we get per se, but maybe external things. But in terms of specifically not even dental, that is with homeless students, which we have a lot. Because if you come in, like for example, the refugees come in, they're doubled up, they're considered under nothing in dental because they're considered homeless. Never understood that, I never understand. Once they're doubling up, it's something else, they're considered homeless. And so we have a lot, we get funding from the state. We get dental grants from the state to deal with homelessness, which we have to apply for. So we get some funding for that, to do that. To do the funding.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Morrison. I know that Alderman Hurt is on the game, and see if others would like to get out of the order.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Dr. Tracy, administrators, good to see you. I've heard you say refugees are coming. And we are a sanctuary city. And I do appreciate the work that we do for our refugees. You may have answered the question. I'm gonna pose it again because I want to get an understanding. With the refugees that are coming into our city, we are getting some type of funding for them, right?
Yes, we're getting, but not in terms of the education of these students. We're getting to help them with probably housing and trauma and what have you that they've been through, but not in terms of the education aspect of the work.
Thank you for that. One more question. How are we going to offset the educational aspect of it?
That's fine, and my side, that's why we cannot coach. As a matter of fact, if I wanted to coach teachers, I couldn't, because we put ourselves in a situation when we were getting that $4.5 million over deficit last time, that I would not involuntarily transfer any teacher. So I can't touch anything until after year 2023. So we're in a bind right now, but I needed that so much for the deficit, I was willing to take it back down. For us.
Now, with these refugees that are coming in, we have to have teachers that speak the language.
So we usually reach out, yes, usually we have, ESOL teachers who work with these, we usually reach out to Iris and Juliana to see what kind of support we can get from them. And so we have 70 different languages spoken in New England, 70. So Ukrainian is going to be added to that, right? We have Pashto, we have Dali, and some others that I don't even know what they are, but we have the multilingual department that is working to make sure that even if they're part-time staff, so part-time budget is very huge to work with many of these students.
And one more question in regards to, the security of our school system, in each school. I know that we've been having some hiccups. How are we addressing security? Something's uneasiness going on, but how are we addressing it?
So as it is with different sectors of the organization, it's a human capital issue. Because they have to go through the civil service, whatever it is, they have to go through the civil side, before we can hire them in our section. So you may go for quite a while about getting school, or as it is with administrative assistant, there's certain of those staff members that the process of hiring is completely different. If I was a secretary in my school, I have to wait until someone is in the queue from the civil service in order to grab that person to work the same thing with the security guards. So that poses a challenge.
Thank you, Dr.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr.
Think we're over, it's all over. Winter, thank you. Looking to see if any of the colleagues have that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your presentation. Seemed like one of the major themes is how restrictive the grant funding is. And I just wanted to clarify, on the 27th slide, it says the ARP hazard funds have been released and are more flexible. Is that an exception to the restrictive nature of these grants, or is that?
Yeah, so the ARC ESSER has a little bit more flexibility to it. We work with the state, and there's certain things on top of 4.9 that we have to deal with. We can't take everything off the supply chain, but we work with the state. And there's certain things like some cleaning that we can absorb into it, for example. So they will allow that if we have to. The COVID is rising again. So we still have to continue all that. Anything around, what's the other piece we can deal with from there?
Basically, they said to us that anything that is happening that's due to COVID, it will into our system. So we increase the security, the parts being stolen, we can have security to go over there and guard the food service trucks. The cleaning, the additional cleaning for the buses, like if someone has COVID, they'll say we'll cover that with additional services. So they said it just has to be related to what's going on in the country now. So like if you have teachers, well, you can't cover the teachers because you have teachers, whether you have COVID or not. So it's those other additional costs that are being incurred because of the pandemic.
Thanks. Of the $9.3 million increase, how much of that is due to salary increases and other contractual obligations? Is it roughly in line with the 74%
Yes.
of the breakdown of the whole budget, the increases? Let's see, flush that out, so then that's like 3/4 of $9 million. It's just contractual increases, so it's something like 7 million. And what would it mean if the city increase was less than 5 million? Would you run a deficit because of the restrictions with you should be blocking that because of the restrictions in the agreement on the salary increase? Can you talk about what would happen if it was 1 million or 2 million, not 5?
So that's what I tried to ask initially. these things, how would we raise teacher salary, we would need to pay our contract, and that would be a violation of the contract. We are contract, that would be, we cannot afford not to pay the raise that's in their contract, so we would be in violation of that. What that would mean for me in public schools, I really don't have the answer. We don't have that. If we don't have the monies for transportation, then what happens? We don't have transportation running for our kids. We can't have that. We can't have those things. This is why last year I did not really push a lot in terms of what we really needed. That's why we still have a deficit looking at the last report. We tried our best to mitigate and do all kinds of stuff to make sure we can bring things down. And I'm saying certain things happen that allows us to really close some of that gap. If those things are not happening, we're not able to close out, we send it back to the city. We tried, we're not able to close it. So if we don't get that, we're gonna have problems with paying for transportation, we're gonna have problems paying for high tuition costs, we're gonna have problems in paying for the raising salaries. So those are some of the challenges that we're facing. That's what keeps me up at night.
Sorry, just the raising salary, since those are contractually obligated, you have to pay, right?
Yes.
So then that would just be running a deficit.
Running a deficit, exactly. Every year, coming back August, we have $9 million deficit, and then we will have to close that. Every year, I've been in New England Public Schools for 38 years of my life, and every year, every superintendent is a deficit. And then if you look at the chart on page 11, slide 11. If you look at that chart and you see how the state has funded us from 2015 up to even up to 2021, and you see the red is what the city has given to us for that general fund budget. We cannot keep operating. We cannot. Every year we're gonna come back to council, we're not able to close it. And it's not a nice place to be in. Honestly, to be honest.
Back to one of the phrases that for the last 18 months we had COVID, the schools were closed. So we weren't, the buildings weren't open, so a lot of our operational costs were lower. Now we're back to full steam, so now we're actually seeing the real cost of what's going on in the district. And like when I spoke the other Saturday, all the morning, I talked about the fact that our 1 month is $500, the next month is $600, and then the next month is $700. So that's what we're seeing now with the school district, these costs coming up. So while I've been trying to mitigate the deficit for this fiscal year, I had to tell the team all the time, I said, I find $2 and you guys spend $5. So what's happening is like it keeps, no matter what's going on, we just can't stay ahead of the game. And special ed is a typical example. They gave me a bill the other day for $47,000 for a new kid that got transferred. So then they said, I said, well, what is this, $40,000, $47,000? Okay, we're fine. Then they said, no, Linda, that's every single month for the rest of the year. And I'm like, I don't like this job. But that's what's going on. It's like buying two, and then a bill pops up for five, so we just can't stay ahead of the game.
Next in the queue is Alder Walker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And this $5 million request is building maintenance and or no? it's just, keeping.
So, so we put, thanks, we put a lot of our building maintenance issues over into the grant. So we not put much of that in this budget, because we are looking at changing our HVAC system, start this one with the HVAC system and boilers and what have you. We allocate some funds from our grant, so about the items that we have those funds, let's use it, because it's associated with air quality, so we're able to put some of that on fixing those things.
So I asked that question, because we talked a lot today and we met in other times about how grants are temporary. And then, eventually, if we want to keep the service, we have to put it in the general fund and then figure out a way to pay for it. So I guess thinking along those lines, right, every budget season, we have a conversation about cost and about how much we're gonna give to the Board of Ed and about the buildings and all of those different things, which I think is difficult conversations, but conversations that need to be had. Do you foresee in the next 5 years, because I would think that the Board of Ed would try to forecast and plan out, right, with the best information that you have. Do you foresee closing or combining any schools?
So if you can recall, because of COVID, we closed down 2 schools. We have to watch the numbers to see where we are with the numbers. I don't see us, because we would have a challenge with that. We have some neighborhood schools that historically have been there. We try to close it. And Walker, you have a fight on your hand because they have neighborhood significance to them. And we looked at the number of those. Okay. Some of these schools usually have like 500 students, and maybe down to 400 and 380 something. All right, am I going to close, say, for example, Webster Grant and combine them with Lincoln Bassett to historic buildings and community in the area? I don't think we could get away with that, really. But that's something we have to look at, and we cannot combine the magnet schools, because they're funded differently under the magnet program. So we don't have that, we can't. We see numbers increasing at the high school level, like Cross and House. Cross is gradually increasing in their numbers every year. So I don't foresee closures or combination of schools. We have closed a lot of schools since, and now we're trying to figure out what to do with these schools. To be honest with you, I may say this year. Now, when we looked at the amount of money that we have to say, millions, literally millions, what more, 20 million? No, millions of dollars to an outside organization. I was talking to my team, and we're looking at what can we do to say, really retrofit West Rock Authors Academy School, bring it back and bring back some of our own programs in-house, and we'll be able to save some of that money. So we're really thinking and looking at some of these things. Paying out is an exorbitant amount.
I understand, I'm not advocating or not for closing schools. I'm just actually trying to think outside the box, because I think that we have to be creative in some ways. So then that leads to my last question. You might not be able to answer it, because I sure don't know the answer to it either, but is it a possibility some way to do some, because a lot of urban school districts are struggling with the same thing, right? Is it, I don't know, is it a way to leverage talking to those other districts? Is it a way to leverage the state or whoever to bring in more funding, right? Because when I think about even when you're negotiating union contracts and stuff like that, it's always better, right, when there's more people. So I'm thinking maybe we have to start looking at the way we look at our funding coming to these urban centers in a different way than we've been looking at it, before. And that's not to say the city shouldn't give more, but I'm just trying to think of ways to actually figure some of this out, because you keep talking about the cliff, I feel like we're at the cliff in some ways. And when you're at a cliff, I think that's the time to be really creative. So I'm just trying to see, have you guys actually been thinking about some of those things that's not traditional and that's outside the box? And if so, is it any way that we can actually support some of these efforts? Because I think all of us have to actually start thinking very creatively when it comes down to our education system.
So a great point, Dr. Walker Myers. If you recall, I mentioned that with some of the other urban superintendents, we met at the state committee yesterday with the Speaker of the House. Actually invited us down because they're trying to look at how they can accelerate the ECS grant to give more to the school system, right? Education classroom grant, to give more to the school system. And one of the thoughts was that we need to do it as a group, not as an individual district. So that's one of the ways we're looking at how can we come together regionally or collective urban group of superintendents and push the state to really understand we need more funding for our students. It's more challenging to work in an urban district. We need more funding to support our teachers, to keep our teachers here in New Haven and not to have them leaving us and going to different places, which also have a great impact on the teaching and learning for our students. Without a teacher in the classroom, and this classroom is supported by substitute teachers, not the same as having a teacher giving instruction to our students. So our students are always at the other end of the stick, and we should not be operating like that. Students, we're saying trauma, mental health issues, which we're seeing big time. Now, what can we do to make sure that we retain our teachers? First of all, hire the right teachers who can work with our urban students, understanding our students, building a relationship with our students and families, keep them here. It's not always money, but money does make the city better. That's what it's true. Okay, so we understand that, and I said, we're trying to think outside the box. I'm so boxed in. I'm not telling them, think, there's so many things inside the box that's not fixed. Then you have to fix first, then yeah, and then you can go outside of it.
So at least I'm not too far off about the thinking, because it's a challenge everywhere. And I appreciate you saying finding the right teachers to stay here and actually teach, because it's different to teach in an urban center. Our kids have, different challenges that they deal with. So I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
If I could just add on to what Dr. Tracy was referring to the meeting at the state yesterday. There's a bill that's going for the House HB 5283. And this is the bill that House Speaker Ritter, Senator Mooney, Representative Walker, as well as some of our other state legislators called in the superintendents for. So what this bill will do if it's passed, it will accelerate the guaranteed funds that we're supposed to receive in ECS. It will accelerate it so that we'll start receiving the funds in 25, which means its timing is right when the ARP ESSER ends, because we have been talking about it. So if there's something that you can help us with, is advocating, calling your friends, saying HB 5283, we really need it to pass. There's some good synergy around it. It wasn't just the urban centers, which was great when we arrived, that it wasn't just us, there were other districts as well. And if the argument comes up as to the smaller towns who may say, well, I'm going to lose funds, all this bill is doing is accelerating funding for the districts that were supposed to receive these funds by 28.
But those who are having a decrease, it's the normal decrease, so it's not accelerating their deletion, if you will. So, that's the argument, that can be made to our counterparts across the state, but HB 283.
And they're trying to work it to have Governor Lamont sign off on it, and it's a look. It's an election year, it's a time to strike while the iron is hot. Though he relies on the earth to set this time over, so now it's time to strike. I'm sorry.
This slide that was on slide number 15, that was the story in itself. And if you look at it, especially on the side with the group side, I think it's been $24 million. In just that one line. So if you think about if that goes away, that would cripple Dr. Tracy's business. That would cripple the business because we're talking about a lot of the teachers and a lot of the professionals who actually live in the city. A lot of the part-timers that we finally raised into $1,500 an hour, they all live in the city. So this slide here tells the story in the fact that we are heavily reliant on grants that may have a future, may not have a future. Take out the 20 million that we get for alliance, and then all the rest of it are grants that can go away tomorrow. And I think it's important that we keep this slide in front of it, because as I said earlier, it tells the story of what's going on in the nation. From my perspective of looking on this budget for the first time, what I have to look for.
Thank you, but we're not yet over.
Well, that's why I said it would be a battle. She would let it out.
But this is just a very quick question. What are the efforts, the current efforts to connect with the HBCUs to get those teachers up here to teach our kids? I know that I'm very blessed and very fortunate. I grew up in the 70s and the 80s in the American public school system. And all my teachers lived in my neighborhood. They all look like me also. But what I'm hearing is that that's not the case in our schools now. And that makes a big difference. I just ran into one of my old 3rd grade teacher the other day in North Carolina. That just did something to me, and for her to still remember all my stuff. But now I'm all right. It worked out, and so that's so, as we all know, it's so important. And so I know one time there was an effort to connect with the NAACP to create this pipeline, again, like they had in the 70s and 80s, because most of your teachers and administrators and all these, well, they might be retired now, but a lot of them came from that pipeline. And so are there current efforts? And if there are, what are those current efforts? And how can, we as a board support that, those efforts? Because as you said, Dr. Tracy, the president identified hiring the right, and I'm not just saying everybody has to be Black, definitely not saying that. But at the same time, it does not hurt to have, a balance, because we're a third in this city. And we cannot just have our education system be one way and our students be another, because that really impacts them, especially now.
So I know there's a recruitment effort, and I know that they're reaching out to different places to find minority teachers. To the extent that one of our board, so one of our board discussions was the 31st. One of our board assignments one of our board meetings was talking about and just so you know, from that, it was after that I got an anonymous threatening letter on my life. right? FBI is doing that right now, so nobody wants to hear us talk about, you know, black and brown, and so that's, we have to talk about it, we have to discuss that. What I have seen over the years that a lot of our students are not going into the field of therapy. And to be honest, I don't blame them. They see how big it is and how kids behave. They don't want to go into it. They want to go into something that is critical momentum in terms of finances and other things. So we're seeing that trend of many of our black and brown students, even through the students who go get a funding scholarship. We're trying to see how we can see how many of them are going to education and bring them back through the Promise Scholarship and working through Teacher America. They're coming through to see how we can get them back into our system. Even for a matter of just 2-3 years, we will get a difference for children. But it is struggle.
I was gonna say too, that there would be, there's been a lot of efforts to grow our own teachers from within. I think that in this last, effort with the ESSER grant, there were many of our paraprofessionals who became teachers and many of the teachers of color. We have a residency program that's going to be starting up, for paraprofessional and other non-certified folks. I think that, outside of the effort to go to an HBCU, we're seeing that the efforts to grow our own, staff, creating those pipelines, is really giving us a workforce, a teacher force that mirrors our student population, which I think has been significantly helpful.
And our Office of Human Resources are also scheduled with declarations, virtual college fairs. And they're virtual at this time because that's the medium in which they're being offered because of COVID. So there is some intentionality reaching out to the HBCUs as well.
And that also would be my big piece of my question, the intentional, like, okay, every second year, February, someone goes down there and they go get those teachers, because that's how all my teachers got here. They always tell me the story. I was at an HBCU, minding my business, but the Connecticut came down and said that they had some jobs for teachers, so I came up north. I would have never come up north, but because of that. And so, you know, I heard you say reaching out, you know, to this one, just referring to what Dr. Tracy said, reaching out. But there's 115 HBCUs. If we identify 10, that we create a real partnership program to, as we're growing our teachers in-house, but also identify, you know, because people still are, as hard as that, what you guys do. I would just, but what you all do is something totally different. You still got people that want to do it. They got it in them. But so we got to go to them and you know, who wants to come up to Cole, Connecticut? But you all can figure out some nice words to get them up here, because we were in the same thing with going to Puerto Rico, right? They have their colleges and they're growing their teachers, and again, being very intentional, because we have to have, you know, our teachers have to reflect our student population, everyone.
So the last time when we met with NAACP, and I think it was one of those presidents of one of those universities, and he spoke to us. It was at Yale. We had some meetings here. One of the things they said to us, you need to grow your own, because we're growing our own service, our community. So that's what we need to grow your own. And if we don't have like a great, nice package, whether it's they're going to do material housing, we're going to do this, many of them are not putting up state to come to the north, obviously cold north. But what we have done though, which is one of our best steps, using the ESSER funds, we invested so far, we have 22 minority candidates on Southern Connecticut State University right now. They have a master's degree and or bachelor's degree. That's not in education. The state worked with us, which was unheard of, to these are elementary teachers. We're working in collaboration with some kind of safety person and the state command of education department. These folks will be staff. They're getting teachers' salary to help them to go to school to finish up the next school year. At the end of that 2 years, which is 2023, we have the ability to absorb that into our workforce because, you know, we have a revolving door of teachers. And the principals are watching them, and they didn't have to mind that down. These were parents who were watching their teachers, how their teachers were very involved in what is going on. And we believe that's one of our best kept secrets. That's 22 right there, I'm going. Thank you.
Thank you, all Morris, and further questions from committee members? Alderman Winter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To follow up on President Martin's questions about building maintenance. I know there was some discussion about increase or accelerating the timeline for future ECS payments. But what about, our aging physical plant? And to the mention of like the rising cost of heating oil, eventually we're going to have to move all these schools off of fossil fuels. So it seems like we're going to need the state to help us in a major way with both of those things.
So right now, I'm sorry if you pulling this off my nose, this year I'm struggling with it. But right now,
We do allow people who are going to take out their,
Oh.
so it's okay. But everybody who's not.
so right now, we're engaged in a major facility study. And so I'm thinking back to the COO. We're engaged in that, and she will finish that, I'm sure, and then we're going to get to see what it is that we need to do around the facilities after we get that report. We already know that some of them, the HVAC systems are aged. They're under diameter. So, but you know, that is happening, and we're working to see, using some of these dollars right now, how we can fix some of those chillers and other things that need to be fixed so that we're not having constant breakdown of these things. Are getting to replace boilers could be, I have that ability to do that with the grants right now because it's all a part of safety. But when those go away, we're hoping to be able to fix as many as we can fix. And then when the money's gone, we don't have to work for the next couple of years down the line. That's our goal.
Okay, so we're doing like a census of all the,
Yes.
all the problems. Looking at the next chart, you mentioned that this is, or maybe I misunderstood. What I thought I heard you say was this is a chart of how all the grants break down, but not necessarily what it's spent year to year. Is that correct?
No, this
Or is that
this
annual?
is like current, this is like 21, 20. No, this chart here, I was just trying to show you an example, like from 21, 22, what the funds look like and where they are. Now, there's a lot of grants that have been funding cycles, some carry over, some are 4-year grants that they basically whole amount of grant and each year that we spend for the next 4 years. There are a lot of variables.
Sorry, I think that is. So this, is this for last fiscal year?
The current year.
This fiscal year? Then this fiscal year that we're. Okay.
Yes, this is an example to show you what's going on with grants.
And the total then is,
It should be 200 million, 223 revenue. And I think with the state, they also, because of the fact, because COVID, they had given us 2020 and 2021. What the state did was, because there was no school, what they did was and because they federal funded, they extended the grant. So you might began, and then we're going to extend it, they extended it for 2 years, and now it's got a letter that going back again, and they're going to extend the grant, from 20 into 23, because they were finding out that they were told that a lot of districts could not do what was supposed to do within the year.
Looking at this chart, roughly half of it is on page 15, roughly half of it is salary, so it looks like it's just over $50 million this year. It's the grant.
That's for 4 years, because now what's in there now is that because we got the 8 million for art, that all the grants to this day is now in farming those numbers. That's what will come up with $200 million.
No,
It's here.
200 million is the budget for special funds.
Right.
Page 14. If you look at page 14, it shows the grants total.
Yeah. So this chart represents 21, 22, where we saw the incline in funds, but then again, these funds are some of the grants are 4 years, some are 3 years, some are 2 years, some start from October to September. So that's why we have, I mean, we just have a myriad of different grants and they all have different funding years.
But in this year, it looks like we're spending just over $50 million.
No, this is just budget. This is what's budgeted. Like if we give you $100,000 grant, then what I did here was I said, okay, fine, I got $100,000. This is how it's currently budgeted.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So this is just,
That's the.
put it another way, it's the award
Yeah.
and how they award it.
The last question was about the declining enrollment figures and to understand what's driving that and whether we think it will continue.
So declining enrollment has to do with when COVID hit, and then we not open up for attendance. Parents on the suburb moved their kids back because they were this suburban school. You had schools for attendance, so their kids back out. And so that has helped contribute to the declining enrollment. I'm not sure if it was on that. You know, we just have a night library, and not sure what's going to happen. We also have students who also move. So the high transition rate in that moving back and forth to different places also have contributed to the decline in enrollment. We also have, we have two charts that we're competing with. So all those are factors that attribute to.
Do we think that, do we have any insight into whether it will go up or go down?
We see it's high now, because on this right now, we recorded 19,200, right now we're at 19,500. So it's kind of creeping back up, and then we are not sure yet what has come through the back end. As well.
Keep in mind that the enrollment number is only as October 1st. So when we open that up, those kids didn't come back during the first round, they won't be in count, they're not counted in. Just like now we're getting kids that are coming in from Ukraine, none of those numbers will show up unless they stay after October 1 of this year. So then you might see an increase, but if those kids go, home or wherever, then they don't, they don't issue.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you all for the questions. A couple of my notes, and then we'll go along. And most of what I wanted to ask is always touched upon. The bringing teachers, partnership with Southern. I remember that was part of what we were told was an important part of the school, which we did great. I agree with all of them. You put a focus on all of it, but the census you're doing of the building, and you should also be thinking about go for energy efficiency, especially with they're looking about agencies and costs for fossil fuels. But the three questions I have very quickly. Which contract, what contracts are expiring next? And are we looking at an expiration of some of them?
So, I'm not sure the timeline, but coming up, we're gonna enter into teacher contracts. Yeah. Oh, there are some we're gonna engage in teacher negotiations and next year, and also following that with the administrative contract. And then following that with the power contract.
The teachers being the largest,
Yeah, teachers being lost, so that will next month.
so that's next. So some of these questions are on paying attention, will likely be discussed extensively. Therefore,
Yes, I'm sure they can come hard, and.
Alderman Rashan, just to let you know, on page 1.5 of the budget book, we list the expirations of the contracts with the Board of Education.
thank you for pointing it out. We should resolve that page. Thank you very much. In years past, we've been able to get a school-based project book for us to look at.
That was gonna come.
And I've asked them, and we haven't gotten it. And so I'm wondering if there's resistance to that, or if it's bandwidth, or if there's some way for us to get our hands on it, if it's providing for the board of meetings. But, this is a nice presentation, but when you've seen those thicker books with the layout of all the money and where schools going to, it's actually very educational helpful. So I'm wondering how can we get our hands on that, or is there some place you can point us to where we can get
It's being worked on, you know, that we had changes in our department. And so we just became, obviously, the CFO. More the CFO, and so there have been changes, and it's now manpower, trying to get some of those things done, and then so that we work on. As a matter of fact, I had just asked Juanita, we are related to the budget book, they're working really hard.
So we will be able to see.
Yes. And please write it down, make sure they get the budget.
My last question is around, does this budget maintain status quo investments in early childhood education, increase investments in early childhood education?
In terms of our childhood education, that's what we have a major portion that is not even discussed in the class separate. $6 million from feds for running Head Start program. We also have funding through school readiness to run extra pre-K program in some of our buildings. That those are different separate budgets that all grant funded pieces. So our Head Start, Dr. Nail School is our biggest Head Start program in the state, in entire state. We see it in the last funded guidelines. And the readiness program is funded by grants. Our other pre-K programs are funded through interdistrict magnet schools. So we have the interdistrict magnet school, our pre-K, those are funded through.
So in terms of investments in that part of the educational enterprise, a lot of those are grants. You mentioned the pre-K was through the interdistrict magnet schools, and so that's kind of enrollment based in some respects. And so the general fund budget is just being there. Thank you very much. Any further questions from colleagues? Saying none, I want to thank you all for being here and for your presentation. We appreciate your willingness to stay with us. We had lots of questions, crazy ones that your responses were very helpful. Having said that, we are very near the end of the meeting, and I'm going to wrap things up right now by reminding everyone here that our next budget meeting is a week from tonight. That's Thursday, the 21st of April. It's at Hill House High School, where my son is a junior. Hill House High School. We are going to have the third and final public hearing on the budget, followed by departmental workshops featuring the departments under the Economic Development Administration. We'll hear from the Special Services District, and we'll begin our deliberations. That's next Thursday. And so we encourage everyone to attend that meeting. Having said that, the motion to adjourn is broken.
Yeah, motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion to adjourn? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. The motion passed. You are adjourned.
This is not.
Oh, did she?
I think it was when it first started, when they first started, because I was in like 2004, yeah, it was so. That's awesome. Because they came down. Oh, I know, so that's funny that you mentioned that, because just today, coach said that to me, so. Connected with Glenn. Yes, no problem.
Hello, sir. How are you?
I'll be like, see you soon.
Oh, okay. And we will tell Al not to. Is he already told us to add it to the agenda? No problem.
Good work.
So it's like, it's in there, we'll have people off.
Yeah.
Okay.
How are you?
You made all day.
You finally got to go, okay, they're gonna be talking for a little, I need a bathroom break. And it's, all right, it's over.